Hello, Joseph Carabas here, reading from books and stories and such that have very much impressed me, that I've learned from, that have taught me something about the craft of writing and how to tell a story that is engaging and keeps the reader going. And now I'm going to be reading from Terry Melia's Tales from the Greenhills. And before I get into this, I'm going to share something with you. I have an anthology, Tales Told Around Celestial Campfires, and that's a science fiction, fantasy anthology, horror stories. So when I saw Tales from the Green Hills, my precedent was, oh, it's got to be a story, a collection of stories about, interesting and odd events that Mr. Melia has experienced. And it's not. It's not an anthology. It is a horror story. It is a true horror story. This is something based on very real events. And so I was not prepared for what I was reading. Very grateful that I read it. We're going to start with the very beginning of the story, which is Prologue, the Aftermath. Right there, Prologue, the Aftermath. Oh, God. Broad Green Hospital Accident and Emergency Casualty Ward, Liverpool, in the heat wave summer of 1976. Arterial blood has sprayed onto the walls. The tannoy is breaking onto a staccato, and the student nurse, Linda, recalls a childhood wish for invisibility. Her clipboard is shaking. The coppery stink of fresh blood is invasive. Rubber soles squeak past her across the tile floors as more useful nurses attend to agonized cries. She's starting the second shift of her career, called in from off duty. Wow. So, Prologue, the Aftermath. We're going to start the story with the very ending. Risky and incredibly well done. And then he sets the scene. Broad Green Hospital Accident and Emergency Casualty Ward, Liverpool, in the heatwave summer of 1976. We're in a hospital. We're not in the reception area. We're in the Accident and Emergency Casualty Ward, Liverpool. And if you're of a certain generation, perhaps you hear Liverpool and you think the Beatles. The heat wave summer of 1976. Heat wave summer. Just a tremendous job right there of setting the scene, the atmosphere, okay? Arterial blood has sprayed under the walls, an amazing visual. The tannoy is breaking into a staccato. That's the loudspeaker. So it's now staccato. It's not a continuous stream of information. It's very abrupt, very abrasive information that's being burst out, staccato, like a gunfire. And the student nurse, Linda, recalls a childhood wish for invisibility. She's a student nurse. All hell is breaking loose around her. She wants to go hide. She wants to go hide in a safe, secure childhood. Her clipboard is shaking. Oh, okay. So in case you didn't realize she was scared before, now you got it. She's shaking. The coppery stink of fresh blood is invasive. Good. Not only is it graphic, coppery blood, but it is also olfactory. Coppery stink. Rubber shoes squeak. Okay, so we got the auditory. Past her across the tiled floors, visual, as more useful nurses, in italics, more useful nurses, attend to agonized cries. Sensory overload. Mr. Melia, please, this is amazing. She's starting the second shift of her career, second shift, called in from off duty. All right, we're in the first paragraph here. And Terry Melia has nailed you to the chair. You have to keep reading at this point. You have so much sensory information that, if he did not mean to do this, he's just a naturally brilliant person. But he's get you with so much sensory information in that first paragraph. You are sitting in your chair reading and experiencing the chaos that is going on around this one student nurse. My God, how good can it be? From up a bit in the story, page 25, The Young Yank of Childwall. July 1976 was turning into a scorcher. Hosepipe bans were causing neighbors to fall out and grass on each other. The spacecraft Viking was about to land on Mars. The US of A was officially 200 years old 2 days ago. Tommy was lying on his bed reading Alistair MacLean's Guns of Navarone. The sequel, Force 10 to Navarone, sat in the bookshelf on the windowsill next to the hardback library copy of Mario Puzo's The Godfather, which he'd read several times. Seeing the film of The Godfather was high on Tommy's agenda. He'd immersed himself in reading, robbing, and selling while Linda was away. He'd spent the previous 2 days with his nose in the book, shutting out images of Linda and the encounter with the Scarecrow Man. It's just wonderful when you're in the hands of a master. July 1976 was turning into a scorcher. Okay, so July, scorcher, we know it's hot. Hosepipe bans were causing neighbors to fall out and grass on each other. Okay, so people are edgy, people are on tight ropes, they're not getting along. We've gone from what's here in our neighborhood. The spacecraft Viking was about to land on Mars. The US of A was officially 200 years old 2 days ago. We've gone from here to here to here. You know, he has given you in one very short paragraph so many anchors to what's going on in the world, what's important in the world, that you are there. He's setting you there. He's putting you there. He's placing you in the environment. Tommy was lying in his bed reading Alistair MacLean's Guns of Navarone. The sequel, Force 10 to Navarone, sat on the bookshelf on the windowsill, a hardback copy of Mario Puzo's Godfather he'd read several times. Seeing the film was high on his agenda. We know so much about Tommy at this point. We know what he likes. We know what his ideals are, what he aspires to because of what he's reading. Much like I aspire to be a better writer because of what I'm reading. Seeing the film was high on his agenda. He immersed himself in reading, robbing, and selling while Linda, remember Linda, we had her before, was away. He'd spent the previous 2 days with his nose in the book, shutting out images of Linda and the encounter with the Scarecrow Man. Reading is an escape for Tommy. Not only an escape from his own personal situation, Linda, but something, the Scarecrow Man, that happened. In two paragraphs now, on page 25, beginning of page 25, Melia sets the world environment, and he brings us back to the environment of this main character, Tommy, of the story, and brings us into his world through what Tommy believes is important. The readings, Force 10 from Navarone, Guns of Navarone, Mario Puzo's The Godfather, seen it, wants to see it, read it several times, spent 2 days. Masterful, masterful, masterful. And then, from close to the end of the book, again, demonstrating a mastery of sensory detail. The lift to the 6th floor stank of piss, and Tommy was relieved to get out. Chris Lawler opened the door, and his smile was as lopsided as a cat with only 2 legs. The book is full of these incredible lines, lopsided as a cat with only 2 legs. That was just one that I chose at random. The book has got so many quotable lines in it, it's overwhelming. So, masterful story writing, masterful crafting, a good study. I've read it several times myself, and I'm learning more each time through. Terry Melia's Tales from the Greenhills. It's not an anthology. It is a true urban horror story. Thank you. Enjoy. Bye-bye.